All right, we're live. I'm Kevin Rollins. I'm the editor of Free Liberal. This is Free Liberal podcast number two, actually. And we did a podcast last month, or a month or two ago, with Dr. Troy Camplin, who's with us again, as well as Keith Parsons, a friend of mine from here in D.C. And would you like to introduce yourselves, Keith and Troy? Anything that I have not shared that you'd like to share with the public?
I'll let Keith go first since you had me exclusively last time.
All right. Now we're forced to share you with Keith.
Well, yeah, I am a attorney. I do a lot of work in civil rights litigation and government law. So I also have a intellectual interest in these sort of topics, and so that's why I'm here.
Dr. Camplin.
Well, I have a PhD in the humanities. I primarily publish on spontaneous order theory.
Well, that's great because we're going to talk about spontaneous order. Last time we were getting into Troy's paper, Getting to the Hayekian Network, which is about different kinds of social structures and how they perform differently at different scales. I'd like to revisit some parts of that conversation, but I'd also like to first introduce the new material, which really was suggested to us by Professor Michael Thomas, and then Keith took a look at those and selected down to two documents. They're both on Pressure in my post by the same name as this podcast, and there were several quotes. I wouldn't mind even if you guys would indulge me going through some of those quotes on air, and I'd be happy to read at least the first one out, and then we could talk about it a bit, and then go through each of those in turn. And then after we do that, there's these four questions that this piece by Adam Martin that a lot of this comes from. Adam Martin is commenting on Wagner's piece called Fiscal Sociology. And you have these four questions that basically sort of get a libertarian perspective on these issues. So does that sound good to you guys?
Sure.
Okay, so Adam Marr is not sure that he likes Wagner's exact characterization of the state versus society. I think that the distinction is really important compared to sort of the typical way libertarians render the state and society, seeing the state as this external force that sort of comes around and messes with people in the free market sector. So as if there's two very separate things, two different organizations, two different societies almost, and it's almost like an us versus them kind of thing. And Wagner basically says that that's not that division is not really accurate since they're both intermeshed. But so Martin writes, state defines state as a network of hierarchically organized enterprises that dominates the legal stewardship of the commons. By dominion, I mean neither that the state controls all the commons, nor that such control is absolute. Freedom of entry into legal adjudication is within the commons is effectively curtailed. Do either of you want to respond to that?
Well, I mean, I think that for me, I like what he's doing here, but I almost have trouble even pushing the state away that much, like giving it sort of a special sphere around the commons. I like to think of things from an individual's perspective, and from an individual's perspective, it seems like there's very little difference between the state and large corporations and all sorts of other things that are external to the individual. So, I mean, I'm sure that I don't completely take issue with the definition. I'm sure there's a good definition of the state out there, and you've got to have one to talk about it. But in some ways, I think the state is the same as other forces in society. It's just bigger and tends to do some things more than others.
Troy, how would you characterize the difference between state and society?
Well, I mean, if we're looking at this definition, that definition of state sort of pushes into the idea of, say, democracy as a spontaneous order. If we look at the economy, for example, as a spontaneous order, I could easily define it as a network of hierarchically organized enterprises that dominates the market. This sounds a lot like a spontaneous order, but I don't think that a state, per se, is necessarily one. One could make the argument that maybe a democratic state, where you have both a network of hierarchically organized enterprises and you have the actions of your individuals within the democracy, interacting, protesting, voting, doing any number of things like that, then begins to approach something like this sort of definition.
Well, I think that there is something in that. I think that there, in terms of the spontaneous order version, the state itself is an organization. And I sort of read this definition as saying the state, and of course, I think maybe it goes into deeper in the other parts of Martin's comment that they're not selected here. But the idea that the state is not a total force in that public society, and that a lot of it, what you just said, is protesting, it's activism. To some degree, it's intellectual conversations, it's talking about the presidential debates, for that matter, and even more generally, it's discussions between neighbors about principles of right and wrong, where the fence line should be drawn, and what are our duties and what are sort of obligations to follow certain rules with our neighbors. I see that as being as much as part of the public sector, public space rather, but the marketplace of public conversations, or not the marketplace, but the Wagner's terminology is the square. So there's two.
Right.
The town with two squares. In one square, you do trades with business, and you argue about what business rules should be. In the other, you argue about how to maintain the sidewalks and how to treat your neighbors and what your obligations are there. So that's and then you could walk back and forth between those two squares with maybe it's not they're just a few blocks apart maybe.
Right. And another thing that we need to address here is it says it's a network of hierarchically organized enterprises. Well, the question that comes to my mind is, well, what kind of network? Because, is it a hierarchically organized network, or is it a spontaneous order network? That is a scale-free network.
Can you distinguish between those a little more clearly? Because I know it's in your paper, but we don't have your paper in front of us. So.
Right. Yeah. Basically, an organization, a firm, for example, is a hierarchical organization. Now, it can be a very complexly organized network with, where it's sort of very difficult to sort of figure out, the different levels and that sort of thing, or it can be a very simple one. I'm.
Troy, we can't hear you. Keith, can you hear Troy?
No, he cut out.
Maybe it's a cell phone network. Troy, we can't hear you. Well, Keith, what's your response to all this?
Well, what Troy was saying just now, I think it's an interesting thought. The idea that you can have a spontaneous order made up out of these hierarchical organizations working together. The other thing that occurred to me when trying to decide whether the government or the public sector, however you conceive it, is a spontaneous order or a hierarchical organization, is that it's possible that there could be spontaneous orders existing within a hierarchical organization.
Sure.
and that at the end of the day, that may be how all of the work gets done. Especially in the public sector, I think there's a lot of times where, you know, sure, you've got an organization, you've got all of these rules and stuff, but people are calling each other in back channels and getting things done in a way that might be more of a spontaneous order if you looked at how things were actually operating.
Well, and I think that, and this is in Wagner also, I believe, the idea that there are political entrepreneurs and that they are, again, redesigning or reorganizing the inputs and outputs of the political process in such a way that taxes and spending, for instance, it makes them more likely to be able to compete against other political actors, and to some degree, this may or may not facilitate better outcomes inside the marketplace. But certainly, we know from rent capture and a lot of Gordon Tulloch's work there that there is a lot of efforts from the marketplace side of things to control the rules such that they can perform relative to their competitors. You know, they can make more money and thus have more survivability in the given institutional space, the marketplace.
Right.
Troy, are you back in here with us? No, he's not.
Still.
Yeah, anyways, watching this, we're having serious technical problems tonight, and with the Google Hangout, and we're having trouble with sound, and it's been particularly striking Troy's devices, unfortunately. Troy, do you want to exit and try to come back in? I'll bring you back here and again.
He looks like he's about to throw the computer across the room, but hopefully...
I totally understand that, so I'm going to... Let's see, he's still in here. Okay, I'm going to add him again here. Okay, so Troy...
I told my little brother to check this out later, so, you know.
So we have at least one viewer, so...
He'll get to see all the fun.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing about the Google Hangouts. It's not really easy to edit it down so that we can cut out all the technical errors.
Yeah.
That's definitely something I'm looking forward to the future now is another program to use that we could do to maybe Twitch or something.
Hey, that sounds like sound.
Can you hear me?
There he is!
Yep.
So, Troy, were you able to hear us in the preceding conversation?
Yes.
Wonderful. Now we're ready for your response.
I can always hear you guys.
It's good to know. We won't say anything mean, even when you cut out.
I can't believe this guy with his technology failing. There's a Too Much Coffee Man episode where not an episode, but a cartoon where where Underwater Boy, one of their compatriots, the Underwater Boy's main skill is sitting in a children's swimming pool with the snorkeling gear, and then he leaves the room, and they all say, "Let's vilify him," which is it's a beautiful thing. So Troy, now that you had a chance to get back in here, you had a chance to think and collect your thoughts. You didn't throw your iPhone across the room, which is great. What do you think about how many blocks away are the two public squares, the public square and the market square? Are they closer than they used to be compared to, say, American liberalism in the 19th century?
Oh, well, yeah, definitely they're closer, I would say, than they have been, in the United States at least. We seem to be progressively moving more and more toward integrating the two. And that's very much against the historical trend of the differentiation of the different spontaneous order. If you look at it historically, for example, around in the medieval period, it was hard to differentiate among the government and the church and the economy and the arts and so forth, and philosophy even. That had become fully integrated into sort of the sphere of the Catholic Church in Western Europe. So, these things became very hard to differentiate. The art was very much uh, designed to, promote Catholicism. You can even see some of the popular stuff of the time. Uh, Things like Chrétien de Troyes' works are clearly, very Catholic, very pro-Christian. Um, and, he was uncomfortable writing about certain topics even. And so what we see in the Renaissance, for example, is the beginning of a lot of differentiation of different spontaneous orders. We have theater, for example, becoming more secular. We have the emergence of science as an independent order. We have the market emerging as an independent order. We have, with the Reformation, religion becoming a spontaneous order. So things began breaking up in a lot of ways. Over time, a lot of these things have become differentiated, and at the same time, we have begun to see a lot more reintegration, not under the church, of course, but under the auspices of government.
Yeah, and I think this is the issue. I mean, I do see what Keith and I were just talking about bureaucrats and politicians. There is a certain amount of creativity, and obviously the policies change, personnel change, and this follows a pattern of who can maintain power under different circumstances. And it may be also relating to what's happening in the market. So if Silicon Valley is making more money, the people that they support in government are going to prosper more. They're going to be able to have more at the margin, more ability to accomplish their plans. And it might be that political entrepreneurs tend to try to solicit their votes, or their support. But we have this in the reality now. Today, we've got this guy Donald Trump is out there talking about how he personally, as the manager of society, is going to use his militaristic strength to get things done, and he's the great deal maker. And I don't want to make this totally about I don't want to have a political discussion necessarily, but I mean I see that as you just said, the merging of these two squares, and it seems like there is a part that's public. We're going to continue having that. We should recognize that, but it seems like there is a proper reason to have a lot of human activity being organized spontaneously in these contract-based realities that don't require central organization. When you mix it all up with the public finance of who's paying for what programs, and that's mixed in with who can make what money, and so on and so forth, we end up with a lot of confusion about. It seems to me the network doesn't know how to grow according to those rules.
Well, here's the question that immediately jumps out at me out of what you just said, Kevin, is then how do we deal with the fact that money, like more money getting into politics, would seem to be a way that the sort of market system, the spontaneous order system, is actually increasing in politics, increasing its influence? Would that be a move towards greater spontaneous order in politics? Or because it seems like the experience is that it's not. It seems like more money in politics leads to more top-down control from outside groups.
Well, I think on that narrow point, I would say that I think because the two squares are merging together, and they're exacting a force again on each other, so that the more money that's in politics, the more demand there is for assurance and trust in terms of political favors or programs that create stability for certain businesses. And I think that on the other side, on the government side of it, the incentivation, obviously, because there are these financial actors out there pouring money in, to receive support for certain kinds of programs, the political entrepreneurs are then incentivized in that way to respond. So I think it's not. I don't see it as being one or the other. I think it is a phenomenon that's happening, but I think it is largely because there's not agreement among the public that sort of intermeshing, that particular kind of intermeshing, is inappropriate as policy. But of course, with these serious issues of the environment and regulating certain kinds of very dangerous industries like nuclear power, I understand why there is demand for some more control and obviously building a nuclear power plant is big money. Building any kind of power plant is a very expensive undertaking, and so if you're a market player, you want to invest in one or more of these technologies. You're going to have an interest in manipulating who's the rule maker.
Well, and for me anyway, what I hear is we've now just introduced two other spontaneous orders. Technological innovation is a spontaneous order, and money and finance. There's a monetary order. So we make the mistake of thinking of money as being part of what we otherwise think of as the economy, or in Mises and Hayek's term, the capital, which is really just the realm of trade. But money is its own order. Money and finance is its own order. And obviously it has huge influence on the market, and obviously it has huge influence in the political order. And if we're going to look at government as a spontaneous order, depending upon the degree to which there's the ability of people to participate. Either way, money itself is going to have a huge influence, but we have to look at it within the realm of the monetary order. To what degree, does finance affect the political order?
Well, I mean, if you think about the signals that are being swapped around in another quote from Adam Martin here, real fast. Wagner depicts social order as an ecology of interconnected plans that originate from the market square and the public square alike. Private enterprises engage in production and exchange, while public enterprises also take in and disperse tax revenue. Out of this ecology of intersecting plans, some complementary, some rivalrous, emerge fiscal patterns of taxation and expenditure. Now, the common element in all of that, in every verb of that paragraph, is money, and so money is involved, and so what money is worth, and who can create it, and who can give it to whom, and for what reasons. Obviously, the giant amount of fiscal stimulus that we engage in D.C. Directly relates to the amount of monetary shenanigans, and so I think that people like Dr. Ron Paul is quite right about this, because we have incentivized, we've created this, we've been given so much power to this monetary order, which itself is controlled by business corporation organizations, which is hierarchical, but also the government organizations that oversee it, and again, intermesh and regulating those transactions. So, Keith, you want to say something?
Well, I mean, you can't escape from the frame of how humans interact. I mean, it seems like at the most basic level, you throw some humans in the room, they're probably going to create some sort of spontaneous order, and then maybe later they'll create a hierarchical order. So we see sort of wheels within wheels here, where there's like a spontaneous order of money that's being controlled by some hierarchical orders in the government and finance, and then there's a larger spontaneous order in the way that all of those actors interact. So I guess the question is, what is the final What is the final takeaway? Are we left inevitably in a spontaneous order that's just like the spontaneous order of all human things, or is it about having a balance between spontaneous interactions and hierarchical ones?
Troy, you want to try to answer that?
Well, yeah, I think that we do have a balance. The hierarchical organizations are designed to help us.
Troy, you're breaking up again.
And he was about to give us the answer.
So have I broken up completely?
You're back now. I got you there.
I'm back. Okay.
Actually, if you can turn off your picture if you want, and that way it might boost your audio signal.
Yeah, maybe. All right.
Just turn it all off. Troy, are you there?
No, it's not helping.
So much for my tech support career. It's languishing.
See, I think
if we were conspiracy theorists, we'd say it's the powers that be are preventing the message from getting out.
no,
They're throttling. They're doing some net neutrality on them right there, or anti-neutrality.
yeah, that was my immediate thought too. I mean,
They cut his
clearly
microphone.
doesn't want to.
So you know what? I'm going to talk to Keith a little more here, and then Troy, when you think it's come back, just go ahead and interject if you want. So I don't know. I mean, so from your perspective, Keith, in the you studied the law. What's the legal sort of thought on this? How do lawyers think about this kind of problem?
About spontaneous orders versus hierarchical orders?
Well, in terms of how the law deals with organizations, and I mean, obviously the law itself is an order, and people are trying to determine at some level what the law is, and they're trying to, as Hayek would say, that they're trying to navigate with the rules, and sometimes the rules are embedded in society, and sometimes they're explicit rules that are written down, and we have this legislation that says what you're supposed to do or not do.
Right. Well, in looking stuff up in preparation for this, I did come across a reference that I don't have in front of me, but I saw at least some people have investigated the idea of common law as a spontaneous order. Mm-hmm. Common law being the judge-created law where, the facts of the case come up and just all these judges decide what to do and then follow precedent, and it sort of grows organically. But, most actual laws are straight up come out of hierarchical orders, although they do incorporate a lot of societal norms and such that I guess would be part of whatever spontaneous order creates social mores, or that's obviously something that's not under anyone's control.
I mean, one of the things I do wonder about, talking about language and common law or so as spontaneous orders, is the idea that, I mean, again, I think that modeling things as a social network, and that we're talking about people. People are engaging in. I'm looking at Troy's screen here. Troy, can you speak to us? No, he can't.
Nah,
it's not getting through.
Still gone.
But I think that it's important to think about. We're talking about the common law. We're talking about language. We're talking about people connecting into, like, if I use a word, that you have this idea in your head of what the word means, and I think of the law as being a network in the sense that people can connect to some path of productivity. They can get into the market path by following some rules, or they can go through some bureaucratic path by following certain rules. Like if you want to put a ballot question on the ballot in California, you have to go and you pay a filing fee, and then there's a series of steps that you have to go through. And so, in some sense, that's also mirrored in your social relations with certain lawyers in the state attorney general's office, with your own lawyer, with your own supporters, and the process the social process reflects what's written in the law, and so in that sort of, to some degree, that organizationally generated rule now becomes an experiential path that you have to take, and that you have to deal with certain people, convince them. And democracy is that. Democracy, so you have to convince, you have to send a message to so many people in your community, and of course it disperses through a conversation with your neighbors and with your friends and with your party hack friends or whoever it is you hang out with. In terms of, some people are closer to the center of the network. I mean, Hillary Clinton is right in the center, and Jeb Bush is right in the center of these networks, and they have a lot of tightly knit connections around them. So when they say or do something, it goes out to a lot of people very quickly. So I mean, that's what all I'm saying is I feel like it's really great to remember. I think in all of this, even as we're talking about these different abstractions, that it essentially is about which relationship you have with which people.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And the other thing about laws is once they go out in the world, they then the effect of that law grows again organically. Like the sort of any of the hierarchical control that may have created a law, once it gets out there and people just start doing stuff in response to that law, it becomes free again. It's all about what you think you can do and what the police think you can do and so on.
Right.
Like a great example is the marijuana legislation or the marijuana referendum that just passed in D.C. I don't know if you saw the article in Express. I think it was yesterday or Thursday.
No, we don't get the Express out in the burbs here.
Oh well, the state of the referendum left marijuana legal to grow and to consume and to give to other people, but you cannot sell it because Congress shut down our ability to regulate before we could put any sale regulations in place.
Okay.
And because of that, people have been coming up with all sorts of very creative ways to build on this base of the law and still distribute marijuana all over the place. Like there's a guy that started a charity, and you donate to the charity. It's like NPR. You donate to NPR, and sometimes they send you a mug. You donate to this charity, and sometimes, pretty regularly, they send you marijuana. And people are just trying to get around this restriction and make the green gold flow, as it were.
I always feel like I don't go to enough charity events,
Yeah, you got to give back.
I gotta give back.
Important.
Well, I mean, I think this is where talking about the enforcement of the laws, it intersects with the fiscal sociology idea that what people are talking about, what they believe is important or central to maintaining the public space correctly, or the marketplace. Obviously, the drug laws impact hiring decisions. There's now drug testing is pervasive. The idea that how much money we're going to spend on, we're going to tax you, and then we're going to spend money enforcing marijuana prohibition. This is another kind of decision that relates back to what kind of paths we want people to take, and choices that if it's going to cost you a lot of time and money to either get or sell marijuana, either if it's through a legal channel or through an illegal channel, that's going to impact, or if the marijuana for that matter is being taxed. And so in Colorado, they're raising the public's affirming the use of this as an instrument for paying for their various programs. Hey, we got two Troy Camplins now.
Oh wow!
This is Troy Camplin in 3D.
But I can't hear either of them.
There's two of them. This is Mr. Smith from The Matrix, Agent Smith.
Yeah, the double angle is kind of intense, actually.
Now we can read his lips from two directions. Poor Troy. I feel so sorry that we have all these problems today. They worked out nicely last time. Um, well, I think we've been on. How are we on? About half an hour now? 40 minutes now?
Um, well, let's see. We texted around. We were on at like 9:15. I don't know
Okay.
if you went live there. I don't
Okay.
remember when you clicked.
Well, I mean, I would say that given the tech difficulties with Troy, let's just wrap up. Maybe another 5 to 10 minutes, no more than that. Make it do 5 minutes more. I know you probably want to go drink some more beer with your friends in the next room over.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm sure Troy is tired of dealing with this tech problem here. I feel bad about it. Anyways,
I'm amazed the dogs haven't jumped up and disturbed us yet, but
my dogs might bark when they realize I'm about to sign off, and they seem to know when that is. So, I mean, I guess my question is, what are the next questions in this? And I think the other question I have is, can we articulate these questions in a more particularly political sense, or in a sense that we could actually make this stuff useful versus just asking these sort of interesting questions?
can we make it useful? Well, I think it's.
Have we learned anything? That's the question.
You know, I was thinking a little bit about that, and the thing that has to be done is, ironically, to know when to choose to let a spontaneous network thrive. Like, at least from the government perspective, if you know when to let a spontaneous network take over a sector, then that's going to be helpful. But you also have to recognize shortcomings. I mean, you got to recognize when spontaneous networks are not going to account for things that people want accounted for on some level. You know, the spontaneous network of getting the stoners their weed is not going to account for what all the people that don't care about getting weed care about, as far as how the stoners behave, how they drive, whether anyone tries to mug people for their weed and stuff. So you do have to have hierarchical imposition at some point, just to keep spontaneous networks accountable to other interests.
Well, I mean, I think this is in Martin's description of Wagner, that there definitely in the public space there are interactions that are not contractual, that there is a need at some level to either using some kind of law or using some kind of enforcement mechanism to say to somebody, you know, this is how we're going to behave. But again, though, I mean, where does that agreement come from? I mean, it could come from religion, it could come from tradition. I tend to think that a lot of rules are sort of made up. I think the marijuana rule is one of those ones that's pretty much made up. And obviously it's changing now because people realize it was ridiculous, and that the enforcement costs and the cost of the individuals were far higher than any benefits gained from stopping people. But, you know, here in Northern Virginia, we got issues with, you know, if you drive through Fairhouse County with tinted windows, they're going to get you. You know, a lecture from a judge telling you your windows got too much tint, and is this a real problem? I'm not sure.
Are you speaking from experience?
No, I've only been in court with these poor souls, and I saw the public condemning them for their terrible behavior. And I saw the judge. You know, we all entered agreement with the judge when he wagged his finger at them and said, "You're not going to do this again, are you? Because, you know, that's too much tint."
Yeah. No, it's there's a lot of, if you can find a way to allow democracy where people don't make stupid rules out of it, then you will go far. People will build statues to you if you create that version of democracy. because people always try to insert themselves in others' business.
But then that's where everyone has a different idea about, so down the street here, one of our neighbors likes to park his car in the driveway in such a way that it hangs out into the sidewalk continuously, it's blocking the sidewalk continuously, and I think that's kind of jerkish. He's not a bad guy. Another neighbor wants to ride his motorcycle, and I had a little incident with him recently. I sort of shouted at him in the street about hot rodding his motorcycle around the block over and over again. And so I don't like that. And maybe they don't like, me when I'm drinking my beer and I'm having a loud phone conversation on my cell phone out in the backyard. So what things should be prohibited? And is there? I think that there's a lot to be said for just having, the local social network. A lot of these things, boundary crossings or the supposed infractions of whatever supposed rules there, the order of the day, the order of in Germany, they talk about the Ordnung, and you have quiet hours, and you have hours for going out and walking your dog, and there's a sort of an order of the day that people know about. But that I think a lot of that is the spontaneous order. It's just what do we put? What things are important enough to put into the public sector, and of course, at what point does a libertarian have to say, what things by putting certain things in the public sector, are we not creating, certain kinds of conflicts? When you say that we all have to make a decision about what kind of uniform we're going to wear every day, if we're going to decide it's going to be wear red today or blue today or something, well then that's another point of conflict which might not have existed if it was. It's a different space. So that if you could just agree with you and the people you're going to hang out with all day, which color you're going to wear, that might be more easier to organize than to try to organize everybody to agree to some particular way of doing things.
Right. Well, it's like the inside of our cooperative. We live in a building. Inside is a spontaneous order of people letting their animals roam around and visit everyone else's homes, and no one has ever imposed any sense on this. So,
well, this is where you live?
Yeah.
The animals are just free to roam the building?
I mean, you let them out of your apartment and they wander about, and then eventually you call them back. Like, it's not like they're wandering at all hours, but it is very free, and Linda loves it because she thinks we don't have enough animals, so she welcomes them all to come visit us.
Well, I think that's this is where again these sort of static rules about how everyone has to live might change when there might be a condo complex which advertises where animals run free. It's like half cat shelter, half apartment building, and there's cats meowing all day long, and you could have 5 cats come to visit you, and when you're opening your cans of tuna fish, they all come running into your apartment for half an hour. That could be really nice, I guess. I don't think I would want that, but
we do have a cat cafe now.
We have the cat cafe.
Yeah.
In your building?
No, it's in Georgetown.
Okay.
But they had
Troy, you're back again with
Am I back?
Troy's. He's back.
All right.
There we go.
Thing.
All right, so Troy, now you're back, so now you can recap us for all the things we said that were incorrect. We were about to drift off into a cat cafe conversation here.
Yeah. Or you want me to try to answer that question that I got cut off by technology?
No, please do. Yeah.
Basically, I was simply going to say that we create organizations in order to help us to achieve our own goals. So an organization is designed to achieve goals. A spontaneous order is an environment in which we attempt to achieve our goals, but we cannot make it into something that we can use to achieve our goals. This is basic insight from Hayek himself. And this gets at a lot of stuff that we see in politics. The reason why Donald Trump is both popular and not a good choice. Donald Trump is not a good choice because he thinks that the world should be run as an organization because he knows how to run an organization. This is why so many people who run businesses get their economics wildly wrong, because they're thinking of the economy as an organization. They're treating it as an organization that they can turn it, subsume into their own goals and turn it, and they trying to turn society into an organization that they can then run and get everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing, like you're used to doing in a business. If you're running a business, you can in fact say everybody has to wear red from now on, or you don't work here.
Right.
And that's fine. When you're trying
no, Troy, you said that, but should it be red or should it be blue?
If I'm the CEO, it's up to me, not you.
But I'm saying that we something we all could know whether it should be red or blue, right?
Well, and that's the point, is that whoever's in charge, whoever's running the organization is the one who gets to decide one way or the other. Sure, you can have your input, we can have a discussion or a debate, but ultimately the decision is mine.
But the point being is that there's not necessarily a right or a wrong way to do things. The point is that in a spontaneous order, people are trying things out, and they're finding out who they want to do business with, maybe, and that changes sort of their own. Even like we talked last time about how we influence each other through language. Maybe that what you think is good or bad changes depending upon your network opportunities.
Right. So there may be different contexts in which something will work, and something won't work. The same exact approach to running a business, for example, may work in one kind of economy, in one kind of a culture, and not in another. A good example of this, I remember the country in Africa where a Swedish company went in and they noticed that there was this lake full of fish. They're like, oh, well, we'll just set up a fisheries plant here, and we'll hire all these people to go fishing, and we'll really help the economy. And it turns out that according to the local culture, the lowest thing that you could possibly do as a human being is catch fish. So guess what no one wanted to do?
Interesting.
So setting up a fisheries may be good for, if you live in New England, where, being a fisherman is a long-standing, fantastic, cultural there's a fantastic history there of people working as fishermen, and it's a well-respected field. But in this culture in Africa, you'd rather be homeless than be a fisherman.
Right.
So it turns out that in this particular context, not a great idea to create a fisheries, which, not surprisingly, is now abandoned.
Mm-hmm. So when you cut off before, we were also talking about, again, this market square, public square interaction. Just trying to get back to that for 1 second in terms of the public finance the sociology of it. I see that. I think Trump's sort of way of speaking about all this is to, and then for that matter, Bernie Sanders too. He's out there saying, if we were really good people, we would be spending this much money on this and this much money on that. And Carly Fiorina wants to, buy more weapons, and Marco Rubio wants to liberate the world, and they have these ideas, and they come with very specific obligations. If you're just talking about Social Security, maintaining Social Security, now you're talking about not just a spending line, but you're talking about a taxation line, you're talking about opportunity costs of the project, but you're also talking about this reinforcing of a public expectation that these policies are good and that they should be expected. Sort of like your fishermen in Africa, the expectation that a certain you're going to be supported a certain way or not supported a certain way, and if you do have this belief and it's it's ongoing, I don't know really a question there, but I see that as sort of where the article is trying to lead, and it seems like that's a core problem for us now, especially in this highly intermeshed set of squares.
Well, the public sector actors only have so many tools at their disposal. So it's sort of, they say they're going to throw money at something because that's all they have to do is to throw money at it.
Sure.
I'm reminded of another local political thing. We've been having this crime wave in, maybe not a wave, but we've been having a lot of crime this summer in D.C., and the mayor has called up extra police to combat it, and people criticize that. And, I have no position on it, but I do know that basically the only thing the mayor can do is, call up more police or not call up more police. To the extent there are systemic solutions to crime, she's not going to be able to react to them she's not going to be able to put them in place in a way that will satisfy people, and in the same way politicians aren't able to do anything except say, I'm going to spend money on this, that, or the other thing.
Well, actually, I think this idea that the only solution that we have is to throw money at it, I think is exactly sort of the problem that we're seeing in politics right now, is precisely that attitude, and it's just not true. It's not true that the only solution is to throw money at it. It's the easiest solution. It sounds like, we just need to spend more, as opposed to, we need to completely rethink the way that we're doing things. We need to completely reorganize. Maybe we ought to get rid of some of these laws that make things worse. Maybe we could, taking an honest assessment of the situation, is difficult.
But I think there's also this time horizon issue, and the immediacy, and the sort of the saliency problem, and where again the problem with seeing these other abstract counterfactuals is that they seem especially in the heat of I think the terrorism thing that came up after 9/11, where people were demanding a solution today. What can how many of these people can you kill tomorrow for us so that we feel a little safer? Versus, we got to rethink. We should have redone. We got to redo the whole 20th century. It's got a lot of problems to solve, and we're not going to get there anytime soon. So let's just go ahead and kill some people, and we'll be done with it.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the problem with Keynesian stimulus. We're paying to keep things going for another day, but then it never ends, and we're going to keep digging ourselves deeper into a debt hole.
I think you just tapped into exactly where this attitude comes from. It's the Keynesian idea of, the economy is bad, we need to throw some government money at it. Oh, education is bad, we have to throw government money at it. Oh, terrorism, we need to throw some government money at it. And it's all this Keynesian stimulus thinking. And it's rather consistent. It's a rather consistent pattern.
Yeah. Well, I love Rob Rafferty's parody of think tank economists. They have one answer for every question. And again, I hear what Keith is saying. I understand that these political actors, they have limited tools, especially in the immediate run. And it's no one wants to hear, be stoical. Just hang in there. Yeah. Well, like Obama got pilloried when he said, just put some more air in your tires. That'll help you get better gas mileage.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe he's right. Maybe that's actually a good solution. Maybe that would help the economy if people just went and sort of thought like that versus saying, what are you going to do for me?
Right, and it's like he's not wrong. People make fun of it, but it's sort of like, but he's not wrong if you did that, and if you put in more air in your tires. But it's also not like a centralized solution either. ironically from Obama.
Yeah.
He was like, out there in sort of a bully pulpit sort of way. You should, make sure your tires are all properly full. But it's not really up to you to try to do it.
Right. And on the other hand, I following this insane arguments about Iran recently, and people attacking Obama on that. I'm not a big Obama supporter, but I think that it's sort of ludicrous that people have this idea that they know better than he does about how to deal with this problem, and he's given his answers, and they're pretty reasonable. But the idea that these armchair quarterbacks are like, no, what we really need the government to be doing is, I know we need to have this rule for the Iranians. We're going to have this number of special forces guys on the ready, this number of spy satellites, this number of cruise missiles, teed up and ready to go off the deck of deck of some destroyer out in the Mediterranean or something. I mean, it's just so ludicrous that these people think that they know how to deal with this insane situation better than all these people who have studied. So in that sense, I don't take the spontaneous order side. I definitely take the bureaucrat side, because how the hell would you know? And it's like, if you don't think that these people running the government are complete fools, maybe some people do believe that, which I don't enter into. But it's so ridiculous that these people who don't read books have these very strong opinions about stuff they knew nothing about.
Well, people also make the mistake of thinking that just because something is spontaneous order, that means absolutely everybody is necessarily involved in it.
Right.
A great example of this. Science is spontaneous order that is also very narrow in the number of people who are involved in it. Now, people can enter and exit, certainly, but it's especially necessary in order to truly participate in it.
That's right. What does it mean to truly participate? For instance, any kind of decision making, and I think this is a criticism I have of people on the left and Democrats, that the idea that if you're just voting, you're doing something that's really virtuous, and I think often that people who are voting are not being necessarily evil or bad. I mean, it's not really that virtuous to go. It's like, am I being virtuous if I go to the local crappy bar and drink a bunch of beer and pound the table and say, well, you should vote for this guy because I'm a drunken jerk, and let me tell you that I'm angry about this stuff, and you should listen to me. That's not really virtuous in any way. I haven't given anything up. I'm just blowing my mouth, blowing words out of my mouth.
Well, there's sort of
Troy, are you there?
Yeah.
What was that noise? There's sort of a relativism that's been reduced to absurdism when you do the things like you're talking about, Kevin, where any vote, even the most uninformed vote, the guy just wanders in and checks a box is worth something. It's a little bit scary to think of that way.
Well, especially when, on the other hand, the scope of what people are deciding on appears to be encompassing, hiring of people to do any number of optimizations. It's like, it's not just who's going to pick the red shirt versus the blue shirt. It's they're going to decide. Tom Thrash had a great post on Fresher the other day about zero tolerance policies. Now it's putting all this power in the hands of unelected bureaucrats to decide whether or not to just destroy your child's life over insane things. And now we have the school board have a battle about that, and it seems to me that it's creating these artificial tightly knit hierarchies that are going to have authority over things in the marketplace and things in your, not just the marketplace, but in your private life, your personal decisions, and your own conduct in certain kinds of public spaces, like free speech zones, for instance, on university campuses, or the free speech zones whenever they have a protest, they put people in a cage, basically. And I don't think anyone thinks that's a very reasonable solution to the problem. It's just simply like, well, again, it's one of the short-run solution. Well, we have this conflict. Well, if we just put these people in this cage over here, that mostly solves the problem from at least one side. They can shout all they want over in the cage, that'll be fine.
That's right. Express yourself.
Express yourself all you need to.
Yeah.
But so no, I think that we have reached a point of insanity in just. I know I used that word several times just now, but I do feel like people are not really clear about what any of this stuff is supposed to do, or how we're supposed to relate to each other, and what our obligations to each other are. It's like, am I supposed to be an informed voter? I don't know. I hope not. I can't do all of it.
I think of myself as an informed voter, but I don't know a whole lot of stuff. So if I'm the good guy, then we're in trouble.
We're relying on your vote.
Yeah.
This is what Tulloch says is about. If no one else was voting, I would definitely vote, because now it actually, there's actually a reason to care, to think that my vote is important. I think that it's, voting is more today, especially in these large national elections. Voting is more of a symbolic exercise, and it could be a social exercise to some degree. I like to wear my I voted sticker, and I like to buy my own I voted stickers in case I don't actually vote, just in case. So I'd still go to the cool dinner parties and hang out with the party hack chicks.
You should start wearing one of those every day. Like if you buy them in bulk, just wear it every day.
What a good boy I am. I'm so minded.
Be like, oh, you voted in November? Well, look at this. I voted every day for the past, 3 months. Get your civic.
I want to get I voted in online poll sticker. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I voted in the Fox News poll. That's what I want to put on my shirt. So
right.
People know I care. So I don't know. I mean, I think this is. I think we've sort of run the gamut here. I mean, Troy, can you say a few final thoughts, or just smile? It looks like you're saying some really interesting things, Troy, and I'm not a lip reader. Oh Lord.
Well, see, he can send you the final secrets, and you can write them in the written article that everyone can go look at.
This is true. Or you can type them, Troy, and Keith can read them.
That too.
Or we can learn sign language, which will take longer. I don't know what that was, but. All right. Well, again, it's been fun to hang out, and I could sit here another hour and talk. I don't want to keep you guys. I don't know if you guys have other things to go do.
I probably need to take my leave of my host.
Yeah, we've definitely leaned on your friend there.
Yeah.
But it's good seeing both of you, and it's good hearing you, Keith. Sorry, Troy. But no, I mean, hopefully we can do this again, and we'll actually get the technical stuff to work. And again, I'm interested in sort of taking new angles, and I think it's good to combine both the sort of the high theory with practical politics, because obviously that's where we can actually do something, maybe. Do you want to say anything before we go?
No, I mean, we can do something. If nothing else, we can wear those stickers you got. And I think we can do better than that, but that's our baseline.
Well, hey, the world's falling apart. Just a constant stupid grin on your face might be enough, right? It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, well, hey, it's good seeing y'all, and we'll get this podcast. I guess it'll be up immediately, and then we'll have to link to it on Fresher. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'll let you know what my little brother thinks of it.
Hey, we can put his comments into the next article. So.
Exactly.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks, Kevin.
Bye-bye.
Bye.